Hey folks, Colin here from Sumthins Recording, and today I'm going to show you how to lengthen your vocal reverb. We're going to be looking at giving your vocals some good length today without just drastically making your reverb really long. But before we dive in here, if you are ready to take your vocal mixes to the next level and really start dialing in your EQ strategy, then I have just the thing for you. It is my ultimate guide to vocal EQ, and it's just a simple PDF that will walk you through how to EQ your vocals step by step to help you get polished and professional sounding vocals without any more of the guesswork. It is a completely free guide, and you can download it below using the link in the video description. Now let's jump in here and look at getting this vocal some good length. So I'm going to start here, as always, by playing you the mix here so you can hear where our vocal sits inside the track. And then I'll solo up the vocals so you can hear the reverb that we currently have on it. And then we'll get to work on it. So here's our finished mix for this track.
Don't you care? Don't you care? Don't you care?
So it's a good sounding vocal with a good reverb on it. It's the usual plate reverb I use on lead vocals. So it's about a 2-second plate, and it's got a nice pre-delay on it. But we're going to see if we can get our vocal, almost spit there. We're going to see if we can get our vocal some more length without just turning up the length on the reverb. Sure, we could do that, but then our vocal's kind of going to just blow up when it hits the reverb. If you have a larger reverb, when he goes for that top note, it's kind of just going to blow up our reverb. And I don't want to get that kind of effect. I just want to put some length after our vocal to give it that kind of, extravagance when he hits those bigger notes. So what we're going to do, we're going to turn off this reverb here, and I'm going to create a new one next to this bus. And we'll go hall verb. We'll color it white, of course, send it into our mix bus, and we'll solo safe it as well. And if you don't know how to solo safe in Studio One, it's just Shift, click, and it'll turn your solo button green there. All that means is when you solo whatever's sending to it, so if we send our vocal to the hall verb, when we solo our vocal, it'll also solo up your reverb setting there. So I'm going to just start by copying over the reverb setting here, just so I have that EQ post reverb. We'll get to that in a second, but let's start by picking out just a hall setting here. Concert hall, recital hall. Let's start with the recital hall here. So we'll see how just the verb sounds on our vocal here. I'm going to hit play. We'll solo up our vocal.
Care, don't you care? Don't you care? Don't you care? Don't you care? Don't you care?
That's not bad. It gives him the feeling that he's in a big hall like that. Let's mix that into the track and see what kind of vibe we get here. So we have that nice hall sound, but we still don't have the length I'm after. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to grab a delay, and I'm going to put it before our reverb here. So we're going to get our delay going into our reverb. So I'm going to nuke the reverb here for a second, and we're just going to mess with the delay. We shouldn't need any drive. The low cut and high cut we'll leave out for the moment. 100% wet. We'll mess with the dry wet knob here in a second. Perhaps even go all the way with it. We don't need to boost feedback because we got a reverb after it. Let's start with like an 1/8 note delay and see. So if we turn that off, it's about 262 milliseconds there. So let's see what we get with just the 1/8 note delay here, and we'll kind of mix everything together. So I'm just going to solo up the effects channel here. Here's just the delay.
Don't you care? 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 Don't you care?
So now what we've got is our vocal reverb is going to be an eighth note behind our vocal. So we've got that nice big recital hall that the vocal's in now, but we're pushing it an eighth note behind our original vocal here. So we hear our dry vocal, and then we're going to hear this beautiful hall about an eighth note behind. So let's pull this down and mix this in with our vocal here.
Don't you care? 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 Don't you care?
So now we've got some good length, right? Because our vocal reverb is coming in after the fact on our vocal. It's not coming in right on the downbeat with our vocal, right? Our vocal happens, and then our reverb's happening an eighth note behind it. And it's happening on a beat, so you kind of have that extra length that you can determine how much you want. So if I wanted even more, I could put it a quarter note after our vocal. So let's take a listen to this now.
Don't you care? Don't you care? Don't you care? Don't you care? Don't you care?
So it stretches our vocal even further there. And if we want to go really crazy, let's go up even a half note. So now our vocal reverb is going to happen a whole half note after our original vocal. Take a listen.
Don't you care? Don't you care? Don't you care?
That's really, you can hear it coming out. That's really stretching our vocal and starting to push it farther back in the mix there. An eighth note actually felt really, really comfortable to me. It didn't mess with the vocal at all. It didn't start to mess with the words or the timing or anything. That felt comfortable there. And you can push as much feedback as you want on it as well. So listen one more time here, and we'll set it back inside the mix.
Don't you care? 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 Don't Don't you care? Don't you care? Don't you care? Don't you care?
So you can see you could do a whole bunch of things after the fact as well. Once you get that length that you want on the reverb, pushing it behind the vocal there with the delay. I tried a little bit of widening. You could do that as well. I went all the way up to see how crazy we could get it. You could put chorus after it to smooth it out. You could flip the left and right. You could put distortion, whatever you want there. Listen one more time here. All the principle is we're sending our vocal into the reverb, getting a reverb sound that we like. I'm using a hall here, but then we're putting a delay before the reverb, and it's not just a pre-delay, it's a delay that we have complete control over, putting it on the beat and everything. We have our high cut and low cut, we can drive it, we can mix the dry wet with it, and we're putting in an eighth note behind. So that means we're going to hear our vocal, and then we're going to hear our reverb an eighth note behind. That's giving us that stretch, that's giving us our length on our vocal. Throw everything back in here now, and listen to our vocal one more time, with and without this reverb.
Don't you care? 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 Don't you care?
So if you're struggling to get some length out of your vocal and length out of your reverb, next time you're pulling up your reverb, instead of cranking the length on the actual reverb, try putting an analog delay or any kind of delay, the stock delay in your DAW, and put an eighth note on, try a quarter note, try a half note even if you want to get that crazy, and let it push your reverb a couple beats behind your vocal spot. I hope that was helpful for you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you're ready to level up your vocal mixes and really start to perfect your EQ strategy, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It is my ultimate guide to vocal EQ, and you can download it below to start creating more professional vocal mixes in less time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.